members of Congress and local elected officials are growing increasingly irate at the Biden administration's lack of answers over these ongoing, unexplained drone sightings. Republicans and Democrats alike are demanding more transparency, some calling it outrageous and concerning. The drone sightings are no longer limited to New Jersey. Now there are other states, including New York and Connecticut, where state police just deployed a drone detection system. Just moments ago, White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby was asked once again to try to explain this all.
I wish I could tell you exactly why we don't have an answer for you here in the afternoon on the 13th of December, but I can tell you that we are working on it very, very hard to know, because we want to answer those questions the same as those folks in New Jersey want answers to them.
Today, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy formally requested additional resources from the Biden administration to help figure out just what is behind this activity. Federal officials insist there's no threat to the public, saying many of the reported sightings are actually just normal airplanes and helicopters. People are certainly mistakenly identifying airplanes, but we should point out it is not just the tinfoil hat brigade saying drones are out there in the sky and acting strange. Elected officials say they've seen the drones. The U.S. Coast Guard says it has encountered the drones. And today, a U.S. Navy base in New Jersey says it has spotted, quote, several instances of unidentified drones entering the airspace. CNN's Omar Jimenez has all the latest on the sightings and the investigation. He filed this report from New Jersey.
There has to be some explanation to the public for all this increased activity, and they must do so now.
And yet, there hasn't been, even as the federal government says there's no evidence of any national security or public safety threats. And there have been growing calls for answers as drone sightings continue in New Jersey, and now also the New York metropolitan area.
They must immediately disclose more information to the public. It's totally and completely unacceptable. New Jersey can't become the Wild West of drone activity. No state can become the Wild West of drone activity.
It's now been a month since some of the first drones were reported near a military installation in northern New Jersey. Since then, there have been dozens of reported sightings, as some federal officials throw cold water on some of those reports.
We have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. It appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft that are being operated lawfully.
And in a joint statement, the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI said in part they're working to confirm whether the reported drone flights are actually drones or are instead manned aircraft or otherwise inaccurate sightings. Despite attempts by officials to calm concerns, videos of reported drones in the skies are still popping up all over social media.
Wow, they just passed the truck.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
Including these from New Jersey Senator Andy Kim as he went out with local police Thursday night. There was even a downed drone that was reported, but it was later revealed to be a hobby or toy drone. All the while, without a definitive explanation, questions have filled the vacuum. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy writing to President Joe Biden expressing concern about the reported drone sightings and asking for more federal resources, saying in part, existing laws limit the ability of state and local law enforcement to counter UAS or unmanned aircraft systems. It has become apparent that more resources are needed to fully understand what is behind this activity. New York Governor Kathy Hochul confirming that drones have also been spotted in New York, posting on X, at this time, there's no evidence that these drones pose a public safety or national security threat.
Which is what we've heard from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI as well. But of course, the number of states where these reported sightings have happened has grown. And to give people a perspective, as of early October, there were almost 800,000 drones registered with the FAA, about an even split between commercial and recreational. So just the high usage in that arena alone adds to this complicated investigative process of trying to find a single through line to what has been sightings over at least a month now.
All right, Omar Jimenez in New York, thanks so much. With us now, Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis of New York. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us. So you sat in on a Homeland Security briefing about the drones earlier this week. Did you get any real answers, and when do you expect another briefing?
Well, no, we didn't get answers. As a matter of fact, they said just what Mr. Kirby said, that a lot of these are being mistaken as drones. And that may be so. Some of these certainly are not drones, they are aircrafts. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of flying objects all over the tri-state area, and many of them are very obviously not planes. And so the question that we have, which I find it astounding, that the government can't give us any answers. Our military, with its capabilities, it cannot give us any answers as to what these are, because some may be from hobbyists, but certainly the ones that we're seeing are not. They could be commercial, but if they're commercial, our government should know about it. And they should also know that they're violating FAA airspace, which says you cannot fly between sundown and sunrise. And that's when most of these objects are coming out. They're coming out in the middle of the night when it's dark. And they're violating the rules in terms of how high they can fly in altitude. So it is concerning, particularly over an area like New York City, so densely populated, that we have so many of these drones / unmanned aerial systems above head. There could be an accident, there could be a crash, there could be a lithium battery issue. We are very concerned about the safety, and we expect the government to have answers for us on what this is. And I think it's potentially our own government that may be doing some surveillance or counterterrorism, but then be honest with the public and let people know, because right now we feel like a bunch of characters in War of the Worlds, and we deserve to know the truth.
Do you, for the theory you just posited, that it's our own government doing some anti-terrorism work, is that just a theory? Do you have any evidence for that? What's the reason for that suspicion?
You know, it's actually my hope that that's what it is. It's our own government and not a foreign nexus. And if it's commercial, then my question would be, why is the FAA not enforcing existing regulation? Because these are flying outside of the regulations. They are violating the FAA policy in terms of altitude and the time that they're operating. So then that leaves me to believe that it can only be our government unless it's a foreign nexus, which I think we would all hate to believe could be the case.
So Governor Hochul, New Jersey Democrat, says there's no evidence these drones pose a public safety or national security threat. It doesn't, I mean, if they are violating the rules, as you're saying, then how can she say that?
Exactly. When somebody tells me there is no known threat, I say, but there still could be a threat. And that is the problem. So it's not just that this could potentially be, foreign nexus or something like that, a foreign government that's operating these drones. It's like in a manner that the Chinese spy balloon had been crossing our country, going over sensitive areas. I'm also concerned about the public hazard of having these objects flying above us in violation of FAA protocol and in densely populated communities like mine. Where we have buildings, it's very residential, and an island like Staten Island, you have 500,000 residents. So it is very concerning. And I would say that they're also flying over sensitive infrastructure, the Verrazano Bridge, which happens to connect a U.S. Coast Guard base on one side on Staten Island with a U.S. Army installation on the Brooklyn side.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions here. And honestly, we just want the truth. We just want the government to tell us what they know. I find it very hard to believe that our government, with its intelligence and its military capabilities, does not know what's going on here. And if the truth is they don't, then we have a much bigger problem right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure which is worse. New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, Republican from New York, from the great island of Staten. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We are at the drone port at Warren Community College in Warren County, New Jersey, in the northwestern section of the state. There is a state-of-the-art drone program here for students. You are looking at very large drones. I am holding right now a small drone. This is the kind of drone that CNN and other news organizations use to get video from the sky. With us is Dr. Will Austin. He's the president of this college. He's also an expert in aviation and unmanned aviation, also in drones. First of all, I know you're going to tell me you don't think what people are seeing and reporting is nefarious. We'll have more on that in a minute. But first, why are such large drones used? What's the applications for?
So the first one is used for agricultural spraying. This is used for power line inspection or search and rescue. This smaller one is used for cell tower inspection, and this orange one here is used for land surveying.
Okay, we have a large one here. Adam Kyle is over here. He's going to operate this drone. Take off, Adam. We can. So this is what
This is
farmers would
also
use.
an agricultural drone, so normally not fly at night.
Okay, so one of the things we keep hearing from people, from citizens and politicians, is they see things in the sky that are the size of cars, and they're very concerned and scared. First of all, can you tell how big a drone is when it's in the sky?
No, the most amazing thing is that's going to look larger to us here standing on the ground than it did when it was sitting on the ground, and it's going to look smaller on your screen when you take the video. So it depends on perspective with some of these things.
Adam is moving it side to side right now. Airplanes can't move side to side with the pilot there. So maybe they are drones that are being seen.
Oh,
right?
I believe people are seeing a lot of drones since Thanksgiving because they're putting up their personal drones. And again, once those are in the sky, it's very hard to differentiate one aircraft from another.
How do you know it's not China or Iran doing this?
Well, the reason I know is because they would turn the lights off, because those lights are on that drone so another aircraft doesn't hit it, and so a pilot in the sky can avoid it, and it is not put there for us on the ground to be able to see them.
So what do you think's going on right now with all these reports, though? I mean, there are serious politicians who are saying these should be shot down.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to shoot this down because if you hit the LiPo battery, you might set the whole forest on fire or your house or hurt someone. But what you want to, and it's illegal, but really, you don't really need to be afraid of the drones, even if there are drones up there. I think what's happening is people are seeing what's known as the parallax effect, which makes planes look like they are not moving. We teach this here as part of our program.
But you're saying bad actors can use satellites to get information. They don't need drones
Correct.
to do that. So finally, do you have any worries whatsoever?
I have no worries. I'm going to sleep very well this entire month and enjoy Christmas.
And joining us now to talk more about these mysterious drones is Michael Mellum. He is the mayor of Belleville, New Jersey, which is one of the communities where numerous drones have been spotted. Mayor, thanks so much for being with us. We do have some video that you and the Belleville Police Department obtained that I want to show our viewers. And if we can go ahead and put that up, here it is. So just tell us about what we're seeing here, where this is, where you've been seeing drones.
Thank you for having me. So that video that you're seeing was actually shot by one of our Belleville police officers, who actually is a licensed drone pilot. So he's got some familiarity with how these things move. He shot that, and what you're looking at right now is in very close proximity. Belleville borders the city of Newark, and Newark, as we probably all know, Newark International Airport is right there, right in the middle of air traffic control. So that's really running up and down Route 21 here in Belleville, which is a direct conduit right to Newark International Airport. That's why it's gravely concerning to see so many drones in the air night after night. That video was shot on December 8th, but the last 2 days has been a hotbed. We have been swarmed with drones over the last 2 evenings.
So a statement put out by federal investigators says they haven't corroborated any of the sightings with electronic detection, and they actually believe that many of the reported sightings are manned aircraft that are operating lawfully. Do you think that some of these reports have simply misidentified or mischaracterized drones? And you know, specifically in that video, what is it that the drone operator said, no, this is the behavior that tells me this is a drone?
Certainly, I mean, now that you have almost widespread hysteria because we have a lack of transparency going on here, everybody's looking up in New Jersey. So clearly there's going to be some misidentification going on. But I could tell you from my own visuals, things that I've seen out my bedroom window and things I've seen over the edge of my balcony, we are absolutely seeing drones. We are not seeing small planes. And frankly, it's been insulting to the residents of New Jersey to be told that they're just seeing things or they're all misidentifying. We're not misidentifying. There are objects that are flying within hundreds of feet above our homes. That's not good. They're just above the sight line, just above the tree line. We know for a fact that these things are not operating the way airplanes do. Airplanes tend to glide and go from point A to point B in a direct line. These things are going up and down in elevation. They're hovering. They're moving erratically. These things are not manned aircraft. That's insulting to be told that.
Do you think federal officials are taking this seriously enough?
It depends on your perspective on that. I mean, we keep being told that these drones are hovering over our critical infrastructure. So that could be either scary or comforting. Scary if it's a bad actor, or comforting if it's actually our federal government. Some out there, and I'm probably in that group, actually do believe these may be government assets that are being deployed because potentially they know of a threat, an active threat, and that these might very well be government assets.
So what do you want from federal authorities? And is part of this the communication that you and other mayors are getting from them? Because it seems that there's been some frustration on that front.
There's a lot of frustration. On Wednesday, 200 mayors were gathered for a security briefing that was unprecedented in the state of New Jersey. We left that meeting knowing next to nothing. What we're asking for is transparency. At this point, I'm not necessarily concerned with who the drones belong to. I can make that assumption. I'm more concerned with why they're out there. That's really the answer. I think having more transparency from the administration, not being told that we're seeing things, not being told there's nothing to see here, I think more transparency would actually stop fueling the conspiracy theories that are spreading like wildfire on social media.
So you're saying you think you know who owns the drones?
Yeah, I'm saying that I'm more concerned with why they're there. I mean, you have to understand something. We were told that they're hovering over critical infrastructure. We're also being told there's no credible threat. We're also being told
it's a good actor.
They don't want to take them
you
out of the air.
don't think it's a foreign actor. Do you have reason? Do you have reason to believe that it's actually then? I mean, I'm just trying to read between the lines of what you're saying, that maybe this is U.S. government or some sort of U.S. asset, but they're not disclosing the objective.
I believe that. The fact they're telling us no credible threat, the fact they're saying they will not shoot them down, the fact they're saying they will not put a temporary ban in place, it's pointing to something. And that's not little green men, and it's probably not a foreign enemy. More than likely, we do believe that these are probably our assets that are actually looking out for a potential threat. That's what we want to know.
All right. Mayor, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
No, there is still no definitive answer as to what is with all the large drones people in New Jersey and other nearby states think they are spotting in the skies at night. At least one Jersey locality is being told that if one happens to fall from the sky, to handle it with care, extreme care, as in call the county bomb squad. That is what Michael Mellom told us. He is the mayor of Belleville, just north of Newark. He says that advice, which his emergency coordinator shared with him after recent state-level meetings, also included this item. Local fire departments, he says, were told to wear hazmat suits when they respond. As we said, it's not just New Jersey anymore. There have now been spottings in New York and Connecticut, where state police have just set up a drone detection system. And Maryland, take a look at this. This is footage from the former governor, Larry Hogan, who lives about 45 miles south of Baltimore. He says he saw what appeared to be dozens of large drones in the sky for about 45 minutes, starting at about 9:45 last night. He says people are clamoring for answers from the government, but are not, he says, getting any. A notion the White House today acknowledged.
I wish I could tell you exactly why we don't have an answer for you here in the afternoon on the 13th of December, but I can tell you that we are working on it very, very hard to know, because we want to answer those questions the same as those folks in New Jersey want answers to them.
So federal officials insist there is no threat to the public, saying many of the reported sightings are actually just normal airplanes and helicopters. But today, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said he is formally requesting additional resources from the Biden administration to help figure exactly what is going on. And tonight, the president-elect weighed in on social media, quoting now, "Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know, and now, otherwise, shoot them down." Now, shortly after that posting, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told CNN's Wolf Blitzer, quote, "We know of no threat," unquote, to the American public.
What we have done is we have deployed our state-of-the-art technology. We've deployed our experts to New Jersey. That technology has not confirmed any drone sightings. In addition, it has confirmed that some reported drone sightings are, in fact, small aircraft. Pilots have not reported seeing drones. That's not to say that there aren't drones, flying in the air, but we have no concern at this point with respect to a threat or any nefarious activity.
So in just a moment, one drone in the New Jersey sky we know everything about. It will be flying over our Gary Tuchman for his report coming up on all the non-nefarious, non-mysterious, perfectly good reasons you might see a drone overhead. First, though, CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller and Julia Kayyem, CNN Senior National Security Analyst and former Assistant DHS Secretary. So, John, we get, I guess, a little more from Secretary Mayorkas. They've deployed teams. They've deployed technology. They have no confirmed drone sightings. They have some airplanes and some maybe drones, but really no definitive answer as to exactly what they are, exactly what people are seeing. So what do you make of how adamant he is there's nothing nefarious?
Well, I think he's adamant that the teams he sent up there haven't seen it. They probably have the expertise. I also think it's plain and reasonable to assume, more than assume, that there is a little bit of reporting contagion now, spurred by us and all of the stories where people are now looking for it and seeing things that they think may be drones. And in the distance, when you see planes stacked up over the runway in a flight pattern and they're spread out and they're in a line and then they start to land, you could say, well, there was a group of them over there. People have seen Starlink things flying and said, well, that was drones. And then some people are quite certain that they've seen drones. I just think, if you look at the history of some of the confirmed sightings, particularly at military locations, you have 2024 drone incursions reported at the U.S. air bases in England. 2023, the Pentagon confirms that in October 2024, so it took them a while to confirm it, that a fleet of unidentified drones flew over restrictive airspace in Norfolk, Virginia, near the SEAL Team 6 training headquarters, and near an Air Force base for 17 days. There's a lot of professionals who saw these. October 2023, drones flying over government sites in Nevada. So we know that this happens. The question is, when it does happen, what is it? And is this one of those?
So, Juliet, again, Mayorkas said some may be airplanes, or some are airplanes, he said. Some, he also noted, were multiple sightings of the same object, maybe 6 people reporting one drone. But beyond that, there was no definitive, this is what people are seeing. So one of the concerns people have is transparency. How would you rate the level of transparency now we're getting from DHS?
Well, I think the administration was a little slow in picking up how social media and how all of us, how people respond to this, especially since it's been going on in November. I also think John Kirby was a little bit more ambiguous than when Secretary Mayorkas comes on a couple hours later and basically was, no pun intended, shooting it down. I mean, he basically was saying, everything that we can see now has an explanation. The best way the viewers can understand this is for those of us who are in the water or surfers or whatever. There's a app that shows shark activity, and it's a sort of crowdsourced app. And so everyone says, "Oh, there's a shark, and there's a shark, and there's a shark," and then you realize all of a sudden people are just reporting that there's sharks in the water, right? And Mayorkas is basically saying there are drones in the sky, and now that we're all looking at it, people are seeing more drones. I'm not saying he's accurate or that as John rightly put, some of these drones are over areas you don't want them to be. But I was surprised how adamant Mayorkas was finally. And I do want to say something about the president-elect. We have strict rules on shooting down things in the air for a variety of reasons. Of most local and state, and certainly the private sector can't do it. The public ought not to do it. So I didn't know how to understand his message. It sort of suggested the public should try to do it. You don't do it because the debris lands on homes and people, and it's a very dangerous response. So shooting them down is not a response. But if there is more to learn, certainly it should be disclosed.
John, there seems to be a little bit of a state-federal divide here also. The New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy requested more resources to deal with this. I guess more resources for what exactly, if they don't know what it is? And how is that divide going right now?
Well, I mean, you think about it. You've got people, mayors, county executives demanding answers from the governor asking the state police to deploy resources. Footnote here, state police helicopters deploy, they spot what they think is drones. The drones turn their lights off and take off. And can't be chased in the darkness. So, they're involved. But I think there is also the FBI then opens an investigation into the drones out of the Newark office. So there's a lot of arms of the government. The White House is saying we have no evidence to suggest that it's foreign or a threat to public safety. And I think in the local government, to get to the core of your question, they're kind of taking a step back and saying, you know what? Let the feds answer this. And then the question is it a foreign incursion that could be less likely? Is it the Department of Defense red teaming some of these bases to test their reaction time and trying to keep a lid on it so it remains effective? Or is it a lot of people seeing airplanes after seeing some suspicious drones?
We will see. We will see if Secretary Mayorkas' comments tonight sort of dampens the furor that has been going on over this.
So let's bring in Mike Casale. He's the Republican mayor of Montville, New Jersey. Mr. Mayor, thanks for joining us. You posted on X this morning, quote, "The feds can't control the airspace, so I am making an emergency declaration. No fly zone for drones over my town, Montville. Fly at your own risk. Residents, please do not discharge your weapons," unquote. This is a noteworthy step. Do you believe that these drones do, in fact, pose a threat to public safety?
Hello, Jake. So we don't know. We have seen them in the last 2 weeks. Yesterday, there were 3 of them in sync, flying over the reservoir that we drink from. We don't know where they're coming from, where they are going to, if they're dropping something in the water that we drink. So the residents are genuinely in fear by not knowing what where they are coming from.
Federal Aviation Administration regulators allow operators of recreational drones to fly up to 400 feet above the ground in airspace that is not controlled by air traffic controllers. How can you enforce this drone no-fly zone in your town?
Obviously, I don't have the authority. That's a federal space. Just to bring the message that we are very frustrated. I have my own drone. If I fly it above 400 feet, like you said, I get a message that I am in violation and to drop down. They emit a frequency. We are told that these drones are about the size of a small car. They don't emit any frequencies, so they can't track them, and they can't see where they're coming from and where they are landing. They are staying in the air for about 6 hours from the briefing that we were told by the state police. But again, that's the scary part, is when they're flying over our reservoirs, over the grid that we have in here, the substations. That's what's so scary.
So that's interesting. I don't own a drone, so I've never experienced that. So you have flown your drone and maybe accidentally gone over 400 feet. What happens? Do you get an immediate text message on your phone, or is this just theoretically what happens?
No, so the phone is connected to the controller, and as soon as it hits 400 feet, it says to drop down. The rule is this has to stay within my line of sight, and obviously can't fly over the highways, over the stadiums, and I have to check an app that says before you fly to check for restricted airspace. It will just not fly. These are the rules.
So the state of New Jersey has advised the city of Belleville, New Jersey, that if local police come into contact with a downed drone, they should call the county bomb squad to respond. Have you gotten that guidance from the state of New Jersey as well?
I have not. We went to a briefing with the state police and the director of Homeland Security on Wednesday, and we were told that we know nothing, and up to this day, we still don't know anything.
Montville, New Jersey Mayor Mike Casale, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's discuss this all now with Chad Wolf, former acting Homeland Security Secretary during the Trump administration and Executive Director of the America First Policy Institute. Chad, good to see you. The federal government is saying these drones pose no threat to security, or at least they're saying there's no evidence they pose a threat to security. They're not saying what they are, except they're dismissing some of these sightings as mistaken sightings of lawfully operating manned aircraft. What is your take on how these agencies, DHS and others, FAA, should be handling this crisis, or at least these questions about what's going on?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I think I agree with some of the earlier reporting that talks about transparency, right? So if they are briefing members of Congress and they're telling them there's nothing to worry about, they need to be briefing the American public, right? We've now gone on weeks here, and there's been no press conference by the FBI, DHS Secretary, the Department of Transportation Secretary, or FAA. Instead, we get a press release, several days ago that says nothing to see here. I don't know that that's enough for the American people. They want answers. If you're able to brief members of Congress and assure them, and it seems like some of them are assured after these briefings, then let's share that information with the American public. I think more transparency here helps, even if you don't know exactly what it is, but you've discounted or you've ruled out certain things. I think the American people would like to understand what exactly is going on here from a vulnerability perspective, obviously there's critical infrastructure throughout the state of New Jersey. There is a restricted airspace throughout the state of New Jersey. And so the American people are concerned on a variety of different fronts. And the more time that goes by without officials talking about that directly to the American people, I think builds that distrust. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about.
Give us some possible reasons why you think, just speculate if you could, about why government officials might be reluctant to share more information publicly about the drones. I mean, it's possible, somebody posited earlier in the show that the U.S. military or U.S. officials are trying to see how alert airports would be if there were some sort of drone attack. What are some other possibilities, do you think?
Well, it's a great question. I don't know that I quite buy that these are, airports are being tested. You can certainly do that, and we've seen that done in years past, but you don't see it on this scale. It could be open investigations. It could be a variety of different things where they don't want to reveal what they know and, of course, how they know it. Again, I think you can be more transparent. You may not be able to tell the American people everything, but the more transparent that you're able to be with them, I think starts to, relieve some of the fears and some of the stories and some of the presumptions that we hear about what's going on. I have found during my time that, the less you communicate, the more people grow concerned, and then it starts to balloon and gets out of control a little bit. So, look, they need to figure out what's going on. I think that's first and foremost. I think it's been over a number of weeks. If it's manned aircraft, there's a very easy way to determine and to discern that. And if that's what it is, just tell the American people that's what it is. But when they're not doing that, I think people are left to guess, and that grows a lot of distrust.
The Trump administration is going to take over in a few weeks. Do you have any sense of how the new administration might address this issue, if it's still going on at the same time, or how they might handle similar situations going forward?
Well, again, I'd hope there'd be more transparency. I think, President Trump would say, let someone figure it out and brief me every day until you do. And that starts to drive action. That starts to drive resources and attention on it. I'm not sure it's being given the same amount of attention. Perhaps it is, but we don't know because it's not being communicated as such. And my guess is you would have President Trump tweeting or truthing on this as well, and sharing with the American people what he knows and what he's been told. So I think there's just a different level of communication, I would guess, come January, if we're still dealing with this.
Would you serve in the new Trump administration if asked?
Look, it's always an honor to serve, particularly when asked by the president. So certainly willing to do that. But again, I'm at the America First Policy Institute, and we're doing great work here, and I'm very excited to be here as well.
Former Homeland Security Acting Secretary Chad Wolf, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.